The trapdoor game. To play the game, you will need a helper who asks the questions that introduce the next step when you are ready for it. The helper talks as little as possible and should not lead you, but simply help you stay on track. For instance, as you move back in time, let's say to the age of 6, the partner helps you by talking to you as if you were 6 years old. You should be lying down with your eyes closed. When you go back in your mind to an earlier age, speak as if you are at that age. If any emotions come up, don't try to hold them back. Step 1. State your desire. The first step in the trapdoor game is to choose a desire and then try to pin it down by being as specific as you possibly can. If, for instance, your desire is to be wealthy, specify exactly what that means to you. If you are a beggar from a developing country, being wealthy means having $5 in your pocket. But if you already have $5 million and say you want to be wealthy, then obviously you want millions more. You're headed for maybe 50 million. This is why it's so important to specify your desire clearly. Step 2. Remember when the desire arose. The second step is to remember the earliest time you had this desire or a similar one. Once you remember the first time, share with your partner how old you are and what's happening in the memory that you are having. How do you feel in this memory? Be open and attuned to your feelings and try to express them to your partner. Step 3. Fantasize that your desire is fulfilled. Suppose your desire has to do with health and you trace it back to the time when you were 8 years old and in a hospital. In your fantasy, perhaps a fairy godmother magically appears in your hospital room and says, "I've heard about your desire for perfect health and I'm granting your wish. In this fantasy realm, you have super perfect health immediately." You see yourself getting out of bed, walking, playing, being with other children, and so forth. An important part of the game is to create a totally new situation in fantasy and to give yourself everything you wished for at that age. Be careful, though, that you don't hang on to the original event. Make the fantasy as beautiful, as abundant, and as positive as you can. Don't be afraid to exaggerate. The more positive energy you collect in your fantasy, the more it will neutralize the original negative energy that is still present in your memory. Remember, this works because the subconscious can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality, so it will believe that your fantasy really happened. Step 4. The payoff. Now the payoff comes. Your partner will ask you, "Now that you have perfect health, what do you have that you didn't have before?" Your partner continues asking this question so that you can collect a few statements about what you have now that your wish has been fulfilled. This question is asked to help you get at your hidden desire. For example, what you really want now that you are 8 years old is to be able to play with your friends outside. You want to have fun, or you want to be the same as other kids. Next, choose the most important statement from your list. For example, what you really want is to be able to play with your friends, but if you are ill, you cannot do that. So you only want to be healthy so that you can play with your friends. This is the payoff. Step 5. Repeat. Once the payoff, the hidden desire, has been found, start over. Your partner asks you, When was the first time you had the desire to play with your friends? How old were you? Perhaps you were 4 and you were alone in your room. Going back to that time, describe in a few sentences what was happening at that time, but use the present tense. How are you feeling? Why are you alone in your room? What has happened? Did someone say something important to you? Suppose that you are alone in your room because you are being punished for coming home covered with mud and your mother was very angry with you. She told you that she wanted you to stay clean and play by yourself in the house. She told you that you were only causing her trouble and that she already had enough of that with her aching back and 5 other kids. In the present, imagine that the fairy godmother comes again and says, "You want to play with your friends. I'm going to tap you on the head and that wish will be fulfilled." Fantasize that you are 4 years old and you are playing with your friends in a way that totally satisfies you. After this, look for the payoff again. Your partner asks, "How has your life changed now that you are playing with your friends?" You might reply, "Well, now I'm not alone anymore." Or perhaps you'd say that you are happy or that you are feeling free now. Pick the statement that feels the strongest. This is the hidden desire behind the desire to play with your friends, which in turn is the hidden desire behind wanting to be healthy. Maybe what you really want is to be free. Can you remember the first time you wanted to be free? This may take you way back, maybe even to 1st grade. Can you see where this is headed? You will keep going back until you find that behind every desire is the infant's worry about survival. It doesn't matter if you process 500 desires. You are going to end up in the same place each time, you and everyone else, in fact. When you start to see that all your desires are really a concern about survival, you can ask yourself if it's really relevant now, today. You see that the single obsession of your subconscious is based on the concerns of a child. But you no longer have to fear not surviving. You are an adult now and you are surviving. You are doing well. Thoughts are mainly superfluous. As you begin to see that not only every desire, but also every thought is a disguised worry about survival, you also begin to discover that your thoughts are mostly superfluous. Once you realize that, it is easier to see through them than to let them go so you can be present in the here and now. For some people, this realization comes quickly, while for others it is an ongoing process of constantly reminding themselves. However, when you finally realize that those thoughts are actually worries about survival and that your survival is not threatened in this moment, you can let them go and not become involved in them because you see that they are now irrelevant. It's as if you were engaged in a war, but the war has ended long ago. Somebody comes along to discuss old plans, old strategies that you were going to use in the war. What's the point? The war is over. It is the same with old thoughts that no longer have meaning or relevance. You stop believing them and just let them go quite naturally. Getting off the treadmill. Once you become aware that chasing desires is like being stuck on a treadmill, you also realize that all your energy is tied up in a world of fantasy. You are never going to blossom and discover who you really are in the fantasy world, because in that world you are a helpless, dependent infant. You need to listen to your mind so that you can learn what it is telling you. Then compare that to what the now is telling you. The mind will tell you that you are in trouble, whereas the reality of the moment will tell you that everything is complete. Continue this process of comparing these messages, and step by step you will have less confidence in the world of the mind and increasing confidence in the now. Once your subconscious gets it, you will be able to get off the treadmill at last. Drop the idea of going anywhere. Drop the idea of becoming something. Wake up to where you are now and what you are now. Questions and answers. Question: if we got most of our needs met as a baby, does that mean we will have fewer desires? Answer: you did get all your needs met, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Remember, needs are what we must have in order to survive. Sometimes we don't like the way our needs are met, but they are still met. Question: what about children whose needs were met easily? Answer: my feeling is that babies or children whose needs are met without a lot of added stress tend to trust the world more, but it doesn't mean they have fewer desires. Having a world they can trust, they may cling to their parents more than other children would. As long as their parents create a world they can trust, they can relax. But if some factor in that world collapses, then in turn their whole world will collapse because they haven't taught themselves to be fighters like other children have. Question: is there a difference between wanting to survive and wanting to be comfortable? Answer: your 4-year-old decides what makes you comfortable. You have several criteria. I want my little world to be in harmony with my programs and my defense system, so I want my TV set here, the refrigerator there, the doorbell to sound like this, and the furniture to be this style. Then I'm comfortable. All this is part of your strategy to make you feel like your world is okay. Then you are not threatened because you can control things. But these desires are never satisfied, and unless you help your 4-year-old to see that everything is safe in this moment, it doesn't matter what you do. You're still going to be uncomfortable because underneath that, you're still worried about your survival. Chapter 6. Are you a self-fulfilling prophecy? Previously, we discussed the movies in your head that you view over and over again. Now we can go further. All movies have scripts, and the fact that you've made a movie of your life means that you also unknowingly have created a script for your life. In your script, you're the main character and you already know, more or less, what part you'll be playing and what things will happen and how you will respond to them. You even know whether the story will have a happy or sad ending. You already know all this because it's in your script. Writing your script. Early on, you kept a journal in which you collected all the facts that you knew about life at the time. You wrote down your experiences and then your strategies about how to deal with these experiences. If you could read this journal today, you would find the place where you wrote about the first time you were punished, the first time you were shocked, the first time you didn't get what you wanted, the first time you petted a puppy, and the first time you consciously touched yourself. You wrote about whether you were loved and whether it was okay to share your feelings. You kept writing in your journal until you were about 4 years old, when your journal had become full. When it became full, however, it didn't just get filed away and forgotten. Instead, as soon as it was full, it became your life script. After that, you no longer wrote in this journal, jotting down your new impressions. Instead, you began to read it and refer to it so that when something arose in your life, you could read your script to find out how you were supposed to respond. The outside world had not become predictable. Instead, your inner world had. With this script to guide you, you could foresee how you would react to the unpredictable events of life, since all your reactions would now be based on the experiences you had during your formative years. You could say that you had graduated from school and now had a diploma. You could also say that you had gone through a factory and been molded into the final product. You were no longer the adaptable, adjustable, open being you once had been. You were no longer liquid clay that could be poured into any mold. You were formed and conditioned. It may seem strange that a 4-year-old could already be formed in this way, but that's the way it works. A self-fulfilling prophecy. There are two major problems with your script. First, it is incomplete. Though it has a first and a second act, during which you come closer and closer to whatever it is you are striving for, the script stops before the third act because it was written by a 4-year-old. It has no ending at all, let alone a happy one. Your life script is like a quest movie that suddenly stops right in the middle, before the hero finds his or her way to safety and riches. It has a beginning and a middle. It has lots of conflict and searching, but it has no ending. Your life script is a 3-act play with only 2 acts written. The second problem is that just when this incomplete script seems to end, it starts again at the beginning. It's like a movie that plays over and over. Living your life according to your script means that you will repeat the same unfinished story countless times. Even if you start to develop your script to go beyond the second act and begin to move into third, you break it off. Why? Because you start to panic on a deep level. Something within you realizes that this is not the way things should be. They are not unfolding according to your script. Because you are used to never getting past the second part before starting all over again, nothing in your script tells you what to do if the story develops beyond that point. So, out of the blue, the situation or thing you were so eager for becomes uninteresting. You find some reason to eliminate it or to be rejected yourself. Later on, you blame this on something or someone else, believing he or she did something wrong or got in your way. Viewing it in this way, you can see that your life is a constant repetition of an unfinished script. If it looks like the script will be completed, you somehow sabotage it and prevent that from happening. This means that your life has turned into a self-fulfilling prophecy since the story is already written. The way you will react to everything is known, as well as how the story will end. All you have to do is to go through the motions over and over. Constantly repeating a story that never has an ending gives you a certain feeling of familiarity and comfort. But it does not make you happy, and you accept that this is the way life is. The script of love that will not be. Let's suppose that a little boy has certain experiences and forms certain attitudes towards his mother and his aunt and his sister and his grandmother, and about the woman who babysits once in a while. He writes these down in his daily journal. This journal then becomes his script for dealing with women. This script says, if I act like this, I get such and such response from the important women in my life. When this boy becomes a man, he begins looking for a woman, and sooner or later he meets one he is attracted to. Something deep inside him whispers, she could play the role of the major woman in my life. While consciously he says, she is gorgeous, she is sexy, she is everything that a woman should be, at the same time, subconsciously, he says, yes, she can play the role of the major woman just like my mother. Of course, he is not aware of the difference in what his conscious and subconscious are saying about her. Naturally, this gorgeous being has her own life script, which says, if I act like this, I get such and such response from the major male in my life. When these two people get together, they are each looking at their own scripts. He reads a line from his and says blah blah blah. If she finds that cue in her script, she answers with the appropriate line from her script, which says blah blah blah. If he finds that answer in his script, they will connect. Whenever two people are interested in each other, it's because their scripts have something in common. So now, with their scripts matching, she meets many of the most important qualifications for playing the role of the major female in his life, and he has many of the essential qualifications for playing the role of major male in her life. They start a relationship. For a while, everything is fine, but if they stay together long enough, they will inevitably find that their scripts don't always match up, and they run into difficulties. He keeps looking at his script, she keeps looking at hers, and both of them say, I did this, so you're supposed to do that. Why aren't you doing that? This leads to disappointments, and problems will arise. It would be wonderful if they could throw away their scripts and say, why don't we just discover each other? That could be fun. It would be fun. In fact, it would be tremendously exciting and rewarding. Are you climbing or completing? Perhaps you are looking for a father substitute so that you can have what you didn't receive as a child. If your father ignored you, you in turn were always doing things that you hoped would get his attention. As you grew older, you learned how to get good grades in school, to tap dance, and to do other things he approved of, but still this didn't seem to win his attention. Then maybe you tried another tactic and started doing things he didn't approve of, like going out with the wrong boys, hoping that would make Dad at least talk to you. But none of this worked either, because he still ignored you. Your script tells you that the main man in your life will and should ignore you. So when you start dating, you choose a man whom you know on a deep level will basically ignore you. Though you do everything you can to get his attention, you know it's not going to work. And as long as it's like that, it's beautiful. You're absolutely fascinated by this man who will torture you just the way your father did. But then one day, the thing you were hoping for happens. He says, wow, I never really noticed how great you are. You're terrific. I love you. Suddenly, he seems to be a different person. And suddenly, he's completely uninteresting. He's not doing what your father did. He's not following your script. You walk away from him. Isn't it odd that when you get what you think you want, you actually don't want it at all? This is simply because getting what you want isn't in your script. As long as you blindly stay with your script, you can't experience anything other than what you experienced as a child. If your father didn't pay attention to you and didn't love you, if you were always longing for something back then, it means that longing for love is an important part of your script. If you are ever confronted with the possibility of satisfying your longing, you don't know what to do because getting all the love needed isn't in your script. It's as if you have devoted your life to climbing a mountain, but you never get to the top. This is because your script says climbing, not completing. If you ever go to the top, or even close to the top, you wouldn't know what to do. So you will let yourself slide right back because getting there feels unfamiliar to you. Breaking free of your life script. Throwing away your script will improve your relationships and make other areas of your life fresher and more exciting. But how do you break free from the script you have been following for so many years in so many ways? The first step is to create some distance from events and search for patterns in your life. This might be difficult because it is easy to get lost in the details of everyday life. You learned certain patterns in your first few years that remain fixed because they basically constellate your underlying attitudes about yourself. Unless you are very aware, you are still operating from these attitudes. People like me when I do such and such. People don't like me when I do this and that. To feel good, I have to be with this kind of person. To feel good, I have to be alone. You'll keep repeating the patterns without noticing that you always choose the same kind of friends and that in relationships you always choose the same type of man or woman. Though you may not see it and instead believe this one is totally different, your friends still see it. They say, another one like just the last one. Why did she get rid of that one only to choose a carbon copy? But if we're following the same old script, this truth eludes us. We don't know that we'll always choose the same person to play the part. If our script is about Scrooge, we'll always choose people who can play Scrooge. We don't choose a Santa Claus to play the role. When you are able to recognize certain patterns, all you need to do is to simply watch them. Don't glorify them, for that will only make them stronger. Observing your patterns will help you see that they mechanically repeat themselves. This process reveals how mechanically your mind works and how mechanically, in turn, it directs your life. Watching yourself repeating the same patterns over and over will enable you to see a little more objectively each time. Then the old patterns will increasingly have less power over you. The next step in breaking free from your life script is to explore the contents of your daily journal, the one registered in your subconscious. All the circumstances, the fears, and the decisions that have led to the patterns, the attitudes, and the strategies that guide your life are all there. When you contact your subconscious in this way, you can get to the heart of your patterns and convince your subconscious that you don't need the attitudes and strategies that make up your patterns anymore. You're an adult, and your circumstances have changed since you wrote these things in your journal and they became your script. You are no longer dependent on others to take care of you. You no longer have to please them or fit in with them to survive. Ask yourself, what is happening right now? Is there a problem in this moment? Do I need anything right now for my survival that existence isn't giving me? When you become aware of the old patterns and scripts and compare them with the here and now, you begin to see that they are irrelevant. If you free yourself from your script and close the book on it, you can open up to real life. We all long for that. We all long to be in our real selves, our natural selves. But in order to be real, we must be in harmony with life as it is now, rather than with a dead script based on experiences that are not happening anymore and circumstances that no longer exist. It is only when we release the old scripts and patterns that we can be available to the moment that is. Then we truly begin to blossom and come vibrantly alive. Questions and answers. Question. For years I was with a man, and once when we were on vacation, he wrote me a letter saying all the things I had always dreamed of hearing from him. I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do with him? I thought about all the things that had not worked out. I stood there and cried about how this relationship was not going to work out. Then I wrote him a letter breaking it up. Answer. It's always like that. He was no longer sticking to your script, which ends with you not getting your father's love. When he started making up his own lines, saying, I do love you, you said, wait a minute, this isn't going to work. Question. If your script says you'll always be searching for father's approval but never find it in the man you date, how long will it go on? Answer. Until you start seeing it. However, most people don't see it at all. They think it's just life. But you can start seeing that the men in your relationships are basically fathers, and in your relationships with them, you're still playing out the things that frustrated you as a child. Once you realize that you are unknowingly operating from a script, you can have different relationships. Question. When I was about 5, I decided that my dad was absolutely no good, and I fell in love with an uncle who was all the things that I wanted from a dad. Then I actually lived out my fantasy because when I was 17, I started a very secret affair with my uncle that lasted for 3 years. A psychiatrist told me that it was very bad and had to stop. So now all the men who physically attract me remind me of my uncle, but never of my father. It's as though I transferred everything onto him, especially in the sexual area. When I see men who remind me of him, I instantly melt. Answer. Your script doesn't have to say that you want your father's love. It may be the significant man in your life, in your case, your uncle. But you may also be attracted to any men who are partly your uncle and partly your father. Question. In many of my relationships with men, there always comes a time when I run away for a while. Answer. Sometimes that's the only way to keep a relationship interesting, to periodically run away. You are going back and forth to keep it neutral. It feels like a lot is happening, but you're actually not moving anywhere. You're just taking turns chasing each other. Question. I keep having the same relationship problems. Answer. That's one of the reasons we say that love is blind. When you fall in love, you actually fall because you revert back to childhood, back to the basic take care of me relationship. If you look at popular songs, you'll see how much they are written by 4-year-olds. I can't live without you and never leave me are popular ideas in these songs. That's just like the 4-year-old saying to her mommy, I can't live without you. What am I going to do without you? Chapter 7. Fear of the positive. So far, we've talked a lot about being aware of our fears, our strategies, and our feelings of dependency, inadequacy, helplessness, and weakness. Now it's time to talk about one of your fears that will probably surprise you, the fear of the positive. What you really want is not to realize your full potential. At a deeper level, what you really want is to hold on to your fear. Amazing, isn't it? You think that you want to blossom and become all that you are meant to be, and at some level, this is true. But beneath that, what you want even more is to hold on to your fear. You believe that you are afraid of the negative and you spend a lot of time avoiding it. But once you let go of automatically repeating the negative, you are confronted with the possibility of allowing yourself to begin enjoying your natural positive qualities. When that happens, you realize that you are actually afraid of those qualities. And though you are also afraid of the negative, your strongest fears are of the positive. Sometimes fear is considered the shadow of happiness. Why? Because when we are happy, we consciously or unconsciously fear that the state of happiness will go away. The fear of being happy. What is happiness? It's a word we use in an attempt to describe certain feelings, a certain state of being. When you were a child, there were moments when you felt a kind of freedom. We can call those moments happiness, combined with intelligence, energy, creativity, and other things. Unfortunately, in many of these moments when you felt happy and were exploring your freedom, you were punished. Maybe you were having an absolute ball, jumping up and down on the sofa, feeling the freedom of almost flying. You were happy, using your energy to experience a new sensation, and the outcome was that you were punished for damaging the furniture. It wasn't that your mother said, "I don't want you to be happy." What she meant was, "Don't be happy on the sofa, be happy someplace else." But she was still preventing you from being happy at that moment. Or perhaps you were having a beautiful time doing something creative, using your energy and intelligence, when your mother said, "You're cutting up my best dress," or "You have been drawing on the bedroom wall with my lipstick." This undoubtedly happened to you many times, and it was all logical from an adult viewpoint. But for the child, the message is, don't do these things that make you feel good. When this happens often enough, you begin to say to yourself, "I don't quite understand it, because every time I get this feeling that I could fly or sing or dance, I get punished." Remember, it is very important to the child to be accepted by his parents or the adults around him, because for the child it is a matter of life and death. The consequence is that the child learns to repress the expression of his total being, saying, "It's safer to dampen things so you don't get into trouble." And now, in the present, you associate feeling good with getting into trouble. When you start feeling good, the red light goes on in your head and something says, "Hey, be careful." And then you turn away from the feeling. You don't do this consciously by saying to yourself, "Oh, I'm afraid of being happy, so let's stay away from it." If you could do this consciously, you wouldn't do it at all. However, you do it subconsciously, unconsciously. You think, "Hey, I'm feeling too good. Something bad is going to happen." We even have sayings for times like this. The higher you fly, the farther you fall, and things to that effect. The fear of Mr. or Mrs. Right. Suppose you've been looking for the perfect partner. One day you realize that a particular woman is perfect. You say to yourself, with this partner, I can fly to the moon. But then you panic. It's one thing to talk about flying to the moon, but now that you have the perfect partner, you actually have to do it. But you're afraid to fly to the moon because when you did that as a child, you got into trouble. So you arrange to start finding fault with your perfect partner. She's okay, but the more I'm with her, the more I realize that she's this and that, and she doesn't do this and that well. You arrange things so that she starts feeling the same way about you. You somehow manage to disappoint her so she can say, well, maybe you're not the right person for me. Maybe it's best that we break it up now because it's not going to work. Your perfect partner hadn't changed. The real problem is that you were afraid to go to the moon. You were afraid to let yourself feel good because to you, subconsciously, feeling good means being punished. And being punished means your survival is threatened. So if you're afraid to be happy, you can have as many relationships as you like, read as many books as you like, be as well educated as you like, wear the most expensive clothes, go to all the best parties, see the latest plays, live in the most expensive house in the world, drive the best car in the world, be the most famous person in the world, maybe even the most loved person in the world. But if you're afraid to be happy, you won't be. The fear of promotion. In business, it's quite common for people to be afraid of reaching a certain level of success. They get promoted and promoted to a certain point. Then they say, I can't do this. It pushes me beyond my limits. That may sound reasonable, but on a deeper level, they're thinking, I'll be punished. I'll get in trouble if I succeed too much. So they find some way not to be successful anymore. Maybe they now only do a medical job and don't get promoted any higher, or maybe they fall apart completely. It's very important for you to start becoming aware that you put a lot of energy into reaching for things you are afraid of getting. You feel that you're running just as fast as you can to get to a certain place, but in truth, you're very carefully avoiding it. Every time you think you're getting close to it, you manage to find a new direction, a new way to avoid getting what you think you want. Remember, you're afraid of the positive because when you were a young child and you were feeling good and allowing yourself total expression, you were often punished. Though your mother didn't say, I forbid you to be happy, the effect was the same. If you want to stay in my house, if you want to live, I forbid you to feel this way or to do these things. That was the underlying message you got. There are, however, a few cases when the mother really doesn't want the child to be happy. Perhaps the child's happiness causes her to confront her own unhappiness, or perhaps it makes her more miserable to see a young child having fun. But that's not usually the case. Generally, the parent is trying to be reasonable. After all, the sofa costs a lot of money, and if you keep jumping on it, soon it won't be worth anything. Or if you paint the wall with lipstick, it has to be painted over, or you have to live with it. For an adult, that's not very nice. Maybe the mother says to the child, "Stop that crazy singing, you're disturbing your father." That may have been a very reasonable request. Maybe your father had a hard day at work and needs a little quiet. But the message to the child is, don't feel this way. Don't feel too good. I do not like it when you are too lively. When your mother tells you to stop jumping on the sofa or painting the walls with lipstick or singing loudly when father's trying to rest, it's a reasonable decision for the child to stop. After all, she feels that if her parents don't like her, her survival will be threatened. So it was reasonable for her to limit the energy, her joy, her happiness. It was a reasonable decision at the time. Now that you are an adult, do you jump up and down on your sofa? You've given up on that, haven't you? We say, that's childish. But if you could do it when no one could see you, would you? The real question: do you want to go on being afraid of the positive? Do you want to go on being afraid of happy? Afraid of being accepted by others? Afraid of having too much intelligence, too much energy, too much honesty, too much openness, too much trust? Do you want to continue the patterns that made sense many years ago when you were little, but that make no sense now? Do you want to continue the old patterns and the old attitudes? Those old attitudes have been with you for so long that to give them up feels like giving up your very self. They feel so much a part of you that giving them up would make you feel like you're being artificial and dishonest, no longer the real you. Let's suppose that there are many paths, but you've been taking exactly the same one every day for 20 years. You don't particularly like that path, but it's still the one you take. Let's also suppose that you say, if I take another path, it wouldn't be me, it wouldn't be honest. I don't want to pretend to be something else. So you keep taking the old path, even though you're miserable. The problem isn't really that you're afraid that you'd be pretending if you took another path. The issue is that you're afraid of having freedom and being happy. You're not prepared to reach the top of the mountain. You're only prepared to climb, to struggle, to yearn. You're afraid to reach your goal, to be happy, because it means the end of your defense system. You think that's the same as the end of your life. Instead, you feel much safer saying, I want to be happy, I am looking for happiness, I am looking for freedom, over and over. This attitude, this game of always searching, feels comfortable, even though it leaves you always discontent. Sometimes you never feel better than when you have a lot to complain about. This is not going right, or that is not going right. You can't trust him. You have to be wary of her. You feel good as you continue talking about your misery. The fear of being you. These attitudes and programs that keep you unhappy began when you were dependent on others for your survival. But in this here and now, you no longer depend on your parents, your grandparents, or your older brothers and sisters for your survival. You may continue to have strong relationships with them, but you are not dependent on them because you are no longer the helpless infant who is afraid to disobey or displease them. You can now take care of yourself. Help your 4-year-old to see that the old situation has changed and not longer exists. If you want to, you are free to jump on the sofa or write with lipstick all over your bedroom wall. If you do that, or if you consider doing it, don't say, "But what will people say about it?" Because that's the same thing as the child saying, "What will mommy say?" The thing you're most afraid of is your potential. The thing you're most afraid of is being the beautiful person that you truly are. You're afraid to be the strong person that you truly are, the trusting person you truly are, the intelligent person you truly are. Questions and answers. Question: how does the fear of punishment tie into things like following social rules and not running red lights? Answer: It's not a matter of punishment. It's a matter of seeing that you're free to make choices. If you like, you can walk down the center of the street wearing hardly anything. There are some places where you don't have to wear anything if you don't want to. You have the freedom to make that choice. Within that freedom, you may decide that it's not so important to you. You realize you can use your freedom in a different way because you don't have anything to prove. As for red lights, they exist for practical reasons. If everyone goes through the intersection at once, someone is going to get killed. Be careful that you don't have the desire to go against social rules or to run red lights just to prove your independence. Doing that only proves that you want to rebel against your past, and if you want to rebel, it's only because you feel tied to it. Question: does the 4-year-old agree to make the change? Answer: you need to talk to your 4-year-old and help him see that he doesn't need to follow the old strategies anymore because he is no longer dependent on his parents. You have to say to him, "Look, kid, you're living with me now. If you want to jump on the sofa, do it. If you want to paint the wall, do it. The neighbors may think you're crazy. Your mother may come in and get upset, but it's your choice now. You're not dependent on them anymore." You have to give your 4-year-old permission to open these doors again. It may take a long time and it may not be easy. And even after convincing your 4-year-old that it's okay, he can always slip back into old habits. Question: why does the 4-year-old slip back into old habits? Why can't you just tell her just once? Answer: suppose you've been driving for 10 or 30 years and then you go to England when you drive on the left side. You can't just say to yourself, "Okay, I'm in England, drive on the left." You have to keep saying it to yourself every moment. You have to remind yourself to stay on the left, whatever you do. When you turn a corner, you remember to stay on the left rather than automatically going to the right, as you've been doing for years. It's the nature of the mind to go back to its old habits unless you keep reminding it to change. This means you have to keep reminding it for a long time. It's nothing to be angry or discouraged about. It just means you have to do it and to continue doing it. Question: are the old programs as stupid as they seem? Answer: no, under the circumstances when you were an infant of 1, 2, 3, or 4 years old, they were reasonable. Now, however, circumstances have changed, but you continue to look at the world through the eyes of a 4-year-old. Chapter 8: Love, Sex, and Relationships. Relationships can be very rewarding and helpful in your search for finding clarity, or they can be just the opposite. We constantly put a lot of energy into relationships and have probably done so since the beginning of humankind. You are relating to people all the time, and in this sense, you are always in relationships, even if you don't have a love relationship. Even if you run away from relationships, that is your way of having them. You avoid them. What is normally called love is just a mind trip because it keeps you regressed, frustrated, and in a state of turmoil. You have to let go of what you normally think of as love if you want to find clarity. And paradoxically, the moment you can let go of it, that is when you will probably enter a state of love. The need for the other. Right from the very beginning, you looked outside yourself for fulfillment and completeness. That's why almost everyone carries this deep feeling. In order to be fulfilled, to be complete, I need the other. The other, of course, is your mother or father or grandmother or older sister or whomever. This is nothing more than an expression of a helpless infant with survival needs. But because this belief is so deep-seated and because we have lived with it for such a long time, we go through life believing that our survival depends on the other. This belief creates an almost constant state of anguish. If you don't have the other, your subconscious thinks you're in danger of dying at any moment. You frantically look around, struggle, and manipulate, all the time in a state of anxiety, until you finally find someone. But of course, once you do, you worry endlessly about keeping him or her. And so it goes on and on. We have a deep, though artificial, need for the other. However, this need really doesn't have much to do with the other at all. It has more to do with our survival. Because of that, we are usually selfish and willing to manipulate and compromise to make sure the other doesn't leave us. Sometimes this manifests in our sexual behavior in the relationship. Sex is not love. We think that sex is behind many of our adult relationships, but it actually plays a minor role. Sex is an instinct, it's an urge of the body. We call our urge for sex love, and the thing that results from that we call a relationship. The human race needs sex, but be very clear that the individual doesn't. The individual needs air, food, water, and rest. Without these things, the individual dies, and that is what defines a need. You do not, however, need sex. People have lived entire lives without sex. They have lived to be very old without sex, sometimes older than those who have enjoyed sex. People have been confined in prison for years without sex, and they don't die. Sex is not a need of the individual. It is a need of the human race. It's how the race perpetuates itself. Although sex is not a need of the individual, it is a strong urge caused by hormones. When the hormones start flowing through your body, this urge arises and mixes with your artificial need for the other, so that you are even more strongly attracted to him or her. The sexual urge usually directs you to someone, and you start sliding into the patterns established by society about how two people relate to each other. This is the way to act, this is the way to be, there are these games to play, these are the rules of the games. It's all conditioning. This combination of the physical urge for sex and the need for the other creates a very strong attraction to be with someone. But this has nothing to do with love. We have a need for the other, which comes from the idea that when we find him or her, we will be happy, complete, and fulfilled. This is not love. It is the exact opposite of love. It comes from neediness, not from overflowing. It comes from concern for yourself, not love for the other. This is not love. Falling and staying in love. When you fall in love, you fall into regression. Something inside you unconsciously feels, mommy is here at last, or daddy is here at last. The moment that happens, you don't even see the other because you project onto him or her only what you want to see and whatever you want to have for yourself. That wouldn't be possible, of course, unless the other had certain attributes that allowed you to project onto him or her. This person has to be something like your ideal, has to seem like something you want. Once you decide that he or she could be the one and you fall in love, you project all sorts of things onto this other. Meanwhile, of course, your partner is doing more or less the same thing to you. After a while, you start to get the uneasy feeling that this other isn't all he or she is cracked up to be. You start to feel that he or she is not living up to the advertising. Once this little crack appears, you start having doubts. The doubts grow stronger over time. After a while, you accuse the other of lying to you. If I had known you were like this, I never would have gotten involved with you in the first place. Or, you led me on, you made me believe this about you. Nobody led you on. It was your own projection that fooled you. You promised yourself that this person was going to be a certain way. It wasn't the other who made false promises. Of course, he or she was doing the same thing by projecting needs onto you and then becoming angry when you couldn't fulfill them all. You then go through a period when you see that the other is not what you were expecting him or her to be. You accuse the other of lying to you, of being dishonest, and your love turns to hate and disappointment. But it's all self-induced. It's a game, it's a drama, it's a movie you wrote and produced. It's what you wanted to believe in, and when it doesn't work, you don't take responsibility for it. Instead, you blame the other. Then you look for someone new, someone to do exact same thing to. So very often, what we call a relationship is just neediness. But it's not even genuine need. It's an artificial need of the mind which says, I need this person or someone like this person to be fulfilled. This thought comes from emptiness and from regression. It does not come from love. What happens is that the internal infant in one person relaxes because it feels safe in the presence of the other, and vice versa. One can think, I have a mommy, while the other thinks, I have a daddy. And because they both relax, something beautiful can happen. But remember, it's the relaxation that creates the beautiful space, not the presence of the other. We can achieve the same kind of thing by learning to relax ourselves, by learning to see that we are already complete as we are. If we learn to see that, we can feel exactly the same way as two people who, theoretically at least, are in love. Love is an overflowing. What is love, really? Love is the opposite of need. It has nothing to do with sex or the needs of the mind. Love is total fulfillment. Love is an expansion, an overflowing. Love is not directed at any one person as it is in relationships. Then love is an investment, a hoping to get something back, even if that something is just the feeling of inner fulfillment. True love doesn't expect anything back because it doesn't need anything. It is already complete in itself. True love is like a light bulb shining in a room. It doesn't shine on a specific person. It simply shines its light even if no one is in the room. The light is complete in itself and doesn't need to feed on anyone in the room in order to be bright. That's the way true love is. Love is a giving. Love is an expansion. Love is completion. Love is fulfillment. Love is an overflowing. When you are in true love, you are not just in love. You are love. You are producing love. You are love itself. The experience of love comes when you are deeply relaxed. This might happen during meditation, or while you're dancing, or when you're skiing. It can come at any time, in any place. It's a deep sense of fullness, of expansion, of trust. You experience it when your mind is at rest, when your memory is not tormenting you or causing you to contract. Many people look for love through sex and through relationships. You might use a relationship with another as a doorway to love, but real love will be between you and existence and will include everyone else in existence. If your love is directed at one person, your mind is saying, I need this other for survival. That's not love, that's need. But if you focus on giving without expecting anything back, then that is love. The adult relationship. In the typical relationship, both partners take turns playing the infant. Both believe that the other is going to take care of them. The other is going to make me happy. The other is going to complete me. Sometimes, but certainly not always, the patterns of two people fit so closely together that they do, in a sense, become one. They complement each other and spend their whole lives together being happy. But at the same time, they also spend their entire lives together being infantile. They never achieve any freedom. They are both like a one-legged person who says, I can't walk without my partner. It's true that two one-legged people can develop a great act and impress everyone with their synchronicity, but they each only have one leg. They are not free because they have to constantly compromise with each other. An adult relationship can develop when two adults recognize their own completion, recognize their own fulfillment in being alone, and recognize their relationship to existence. Then, if by chance they happen to be together, they can give each other total freedom, they can respect each other, they can accept responsibility for their own feelings, and they can have an adult relationship. This can happen when two people who dance beautifully alone decide to dance together. They are also both willing to dance separately if one day they no longer dance together. Perhaps they separate, perhaps they come back together again, perhaps they separate again, and perhaps they come together again. But whether they are alone or together, they will always have a feeling of freedom. Each will say to him or herself, I am complete as I am, yet it is fun to dance with the other. And if the other has the slightest urge to go, I will let him. Something like this sometimes happens when two people start out with a sexual relationship and, over a period of time, become friends. They move on to sexual relationships with other people, but remain friends with each other. This is not exactly an adult relationship, but it is moving in that direction because they respect each other and give each other freedom. Being love. You can use a relationship just as you would use any other device to help you gain clarity. You can use it to see how childish you are, how dependent you are on the other, how you are still projecting onto the other the dynamics of the one who took care of you when you were an infant. If, however, you make the other responsible for your survival, it gets ugly. If you blame the other for your unhappiness, it gets ugly. If you cling to the other and limit his or her freedom, it gets ugly. This is not love. Be open to thinking about what it means each time you say or hear the word love. Be open to how you interpret it, how you translate it in your mind. Use your relationships to find out more about yourself. if you are giving the other complete freedom to walk out of your life at any second, knowing that you are going to remain complete if he or she does, you can call that love. But if any part of you is clinging to the other, understand that this is a need coming from the infant you used to be. Watch your relationships with people. Watch yourself and your actions and your thoughts and your emotions. Watch these things in your so-called love and sexual relationships, as well as in your relationships with your friends and acquaintances. Observe how much you make other people responsible for your happiness, for your well-being and fulfillment. Be aware of how you blame them if things don't go right. See if you still believe that you need the other. If you begin to see that you do not, and that you do not really need to have this feeling, then you can begin to get rid of it. Then you can feel completion and fulfillment with life itself. Then you can feel completion and fulfillment within yourself. Then you can feel love wherever you are. Then you will be love. Questions and answers. Question: what about the love between children and their parents? Answer: children do not love their parents. If you have small children, you can see that they don't love you, they need you. You see it with animals like piglets. They walk all over the mother because they are only interested in one thing: eating. They don't care where the tit is and what it is attached to. It is totally unimportant to them. You see something like this with children. That's the way nature has made them. It's fine. It's the way it is. Question: if people don't love their parents when they are children, can they love them as adults? Answer: a lot of people never loved and still don't love their mother, even as adults. But they are attached to her. They see her as the other part of them. A lot of adults are attached to their parents, but this comes from need, not love. But that can change. You can soften your attitude and begin feeling affection for your parents. As long as you keep your parents in the parenting role, this is an attachment that is coming from the mind. Somehow you can still feel like the umbilical cord is there. But when you can let go of that and allow them to become human beings, you have a chance to experience them in a different way and a chance to experience yourself as a whole person. Question: should we just get rid of our bad relationships? Just walk away from them? Answer: I'm not suggesting that you drop your relationships. Rather, the best thing to do is to go into them with as much awareness as you can manage, with the idea of not clinging to each other, but of helping each other. Allow the other to help you see where you are stuck, where you are crippling yourself by feeling dependent on the other. Enter your relationships with the intention of learning to give the other more and more freedom, and of learning to take the freedom that the other gives you. If you do this, respect will grow and neediness will begin to disappear. You will be helping each other to truly become adults, and then you will have a really beautiful adult relationship. Question: some people can make progress on a more solitary path. Perhaps they are afraid, but if they have seen that everything leads to chaos, why not choose the solitary path of peace? Answer: there is nothing wrong with that. However, it would be a little tricky to figure out whether or not, at a deeper subconscious level, you still feel dependent on the other. If you do, then taking the solitary path is like running away from something you really want. You settle for something that seems second best, rationalizing that it was what you really wanted all along. People who choose the solitary path need to observe their fears, recognizing whether they are afraid of being hurt in a relationship or being disappointed or afraid that it's never going to work out. If that's the case, choosing the solitary path is resignation, not freedom. Chapter 9. The Senses. You can see that most people are afraid in the way they handle or mishandle their relationships, their careers, and even their time alone. They often act as if their lives are threatened, even when they clearly are not. Although there is no real danger, still they are full of tension. The fact is, however, that something threatening your survival is the only real danger you ever face. So either your survival is in danger or it isn't. It's that simple. Nature has given you a way to know whether your survival is in danger. That way is through your senses. You have eyes to see, ears to hear, fingers to touch, a nose to smell, a mouth and tongue to taste. If you're halfway alert, these senses will let you know when there is danger. That's their purpose. If you stay in touch with what they are telling you, you will notice two things. First, that your senses will keep you out of danger, and second, that there seldom is any real danger. Suppose someone was sitting under a tree in the middle of a very peaceful meadow, and all his senses were telling him that he's perfectly safe. And yet he's panic-stricken. You might say that he is plain crazy, but this is more or less the way everyone is. In the middle of a completely safe situation, the nightmares in our heads are going round and round, and we're panicked, worrying about this or worrying about that. Yet the reality is very clear. Either there is danger or there is not. There are no yes buts. It's that simple. The fact that you carry around the memory of an old danger is irrelevant. It doesn't make the present moment dangerous. We only think there is danger because we continue looking at those old movies, those old photographs, calling them life. Your book of memories is full of horror stories that once were true in the past. Even when you are sitting in the middle of a pleasant meadow, you think you're in danger because a book of memories tells stories which, on a deeper level, you believe are still happening right now. You have to start using your senses to determine whether or not danger is present at this particular moment of your life. There is no such thing as yesterday. There is no such thing as tomorrow. In a sense, you're completely naked except for your book of photographs, which you carry tucked under your arm throughout life. You have a choice. You can believe that the book of photographs is your life, or you can look around you at this moment and realize that this is your life. Your mind is not a good evaluator of danger. Your senses are much faster than your head in that respect. They are much better qualified to evaluate danger than your head. You know that if something is about to stick you in the eye, your eyelid closes before your mind is even aware of the danger. The mind is simply a registrar of every danger you once experienced, but it's not really capable of telling you whether or not danger exists now. We need to wake up from the dream we're living in. There is only this moment. There is only here. The only question is there danger in this moment here? If not, why are you worried? Your senses say, "General, the war is over." But your 4-year-old general doesn't believe it. He thinks he needs to go on working out strategies, worrying, finding every possible reason to mistrust the peace because that's his job. He's a professional warrior, a professional soldier. But if you're not in danger right now and here, you don't have a war to fight. 5 seconds of bliss. Some people ask, shouldn't we worry about potential dangers out there? What about pollution, global warming, the famine we know will happen somewhere in the world next year, the next tornado, terrorism, and so on? You have to realize that these problems all concern the future. Everyone is worried because everyone thinks in the future tense. You're never going to save the world by trying to save the oceans. You'll save the world by waking up to reality. Remember, your life is only this moment, this second. You think of your life as being 50 or 80 years long, but it isn't so. Your life is only this moment. If right now your head is full of worries, then you're living in an imaginary future. You're creating neurosis and contributing to the fear in the world. Sooner or later, everyone is going to die. That's the nature of things. But why live in fear until that happens? It's better to have 5 seconds of bliss than 50 years of misery. The world is what you can see and feel at this moment. That's your world. That's your life right now. And if right now there is no problem, then it's that simple. There is no problem. If you want to do something about the oceans, become less neurotic yourself. Then you'll be in a position, perhaps, to influence others about marine policy. A ball or a bowl or a plate. Existence is something like a ball of dough or of clay. Let's say you start out with a round ball of clay and use that clay to make a bowl. Now you have a bowl made of clay, but where is the ball? There is no ball anymore. Now there is a bowl made of the same clay. The clay is still there, but you don't have a ball and a bowl. You can take the clay bowl and from that make a plate. You say, now I have a ball, I have a bowl and a plate. But it isn't like that. If you use the clay bowl to make a plate, then you don't have a bowl anymore and you don't have a ball. You only have a plate. But if we listen to our mind, which most of us do, we believe that we have all 3 things at the same time. But if you have the plate, the ball and the bowl are gone. They exist only in memory. This is a very basic and important concept to understand, though it can be difficult to grasp because our whole culture believes in this myth. The truth is that the clay changed into a plate. The ball and the bowl are gone. If our reality at this moment is the plate, not the ball or the bowl, then that's all there is. The world is also like that. It changes form all the time and it uses itself to do so. It doesn't create one thing and put it on a shelf, then create another thing and put it on the shelf. The world is just like that one lump of clay constantly shifting into new forms while others disappear. It is what it is, not what it was. And you are who you are now. Your life is what it is now. It is what it is, not what it was. When we worry today, it's because once we were in danger years and years ago when we couldn't take care of ourselves. But is there danger at this moment? Just look around and begin seeing that there is nothing really to figure out or to be tense about. But we go on worrying, and our worry creates more fear and tension in the world, which in turn exacerbates problems. If you're ever going to wake up, you wake up in this moment. You can't wake up yesterday and you can't wake up tomorrow because neither yesterday nor tomorrow exists. Begin using your senses to tell you whether or not you're in danger. Your head can only tell you about the past or your fantasies of the future, but your senses can tell you about the present. Your head's job is to tell you that you're in trouble. If you listen to your head, you'll always be in trouble. In contrast, if you listen to your senses, you'll find that there is seldom any danger. Whenever you are actually in danger, your body will do something appropriate before you even know it. Questions and answers. Question: how can I stay in touch with my senses? Answer: by bringing awareness into your body and asking, what am I seeing right now? What am I hearing right now? What am I touching right now? What am I smelling right now? What am I tasting right now? It is important to take your time answering these questions. Question: how can my senses tell me whether there is a problem? Answer: the subconscious is only worried about survival. If your survival were in danger, you would have a problem. If you were suffocating, starving, drowning, falling off of a skyscraper, and so on, your survival would be in danger. By using your 5 senses, you can determine whether anything is endangering your survival right now. Question: I'm concerned about my career in the future. My job is in jeopardy and I may not be able to pay my mortgage. I sincerely feel that my survival is in danger. How can I rest in the moment when I'm concerned about paying my bills? Answer: first of all, look around you right here, right now, and you can see that you're surviving beautifully. You have a roof over your head, you are warm, you are nourished, and you are safe. Reach out and touch this moment, see the colors and hear the sounds of this moment. As you rest inside this body, you relax and realize that right here, right now, there is no problem, and something inside begins to trust. As you look around, you realize that existence is taking care of you moment to moment. Chapter 10: Practical Enlightenment. Everything I have discussed so far leads to one thing: waking up to truth. It is really the most practical thing you can do with your life. Waking up brings you out of the dream in which you have lived all your life so that you can experience a very different world, reality. It is a reality in which your life is fuller and richer than you ever imagined possible, but in a totally practical, realistic way. Waking up is the best choice. There are only 2 places where you can be: in memory or in the present moment. That's all. There are no more choices. When you are thinking about the future, you are really just rehearsing and rearranging memory. Why be in memory, which is a dream world? When you are in the dream, you are in the world of your infancy and childhood, believing that you are helpless, powerless, inadequate, and defenseless, and therefore utterly dependent on someone else for your survival. It isn't a pleasant world. Many people believe that childhood and infancy are states of innocence and bliss, the epitome of security and satisfaction. This isn't true. Even if you had the most loving parents possible, subconsciously you still felt absolutely helpless and defenseless. Even though you're no longer that child, you're still being guided by your 4-year-old who always feels that something is missing. This means that you can never be fully at ease and feel safe and happy. It also means that there is no reason for not wanting to wake up. Why shouldn't you wake up? Wake up, but don't try to wake up. When most people think of awakening to truth, if they do so at all, they imagine it happening to someone else. They may consider themselves seekers who are searching for the truth, for self-realization, for enlightenment, or for whatever they call it. Unfortunately, every one of these seekers is being guided by their programming, even though they are not aware of it. This programming says, I'm going to give it my best, but I know that I am not going to make it. Simply by having the attitude of seeking, they are holding themselves back. They will always be seekers, not finders, because if you continue to call yourself a seeker, then you are programming yourself to seek, not to find. If you have been calling yourself a seeker, it's time to drop that. Instead, start calling yourself a finder. I am a finder who at this moment is seeking what I'm going to find. This is very important because if you stay stuck in the idea that you are a seeker, then you are programmed to continually climb the mountain. But you will never reach the top because you are not programmed to reach the top. If you come close to it, you have to allow yourself to slide back down. Then you can start climbing again, and then you feel comfortable because you feel comfortable seeking, not finding. You want to wake up, which means you want to open yourself up to reaching the top rather than just continually climbing. In other words, stop trying to wake up and actually wake up. There is no mountain that you can't climb. In fact, you're already on top, but because you don't allow yourself to see that, you continue climbing. But you don't have to climb anymore. You've already arrived. Open yourself to blossoming, to self-realizing, to finding truth, rather than just thinking about it. All you have to do is to be in the moment, because the moment is truth. And that moment is always present. The moment is always where you are. You are the moment. When you experience the moment, you experience yourself as the moment. You and the moment are one. There is no past or future. We want to be present in the present because that is real life. The idea of a past is a myth, and the idea of a future is a myth. But since we all believe in this myth, hardly anyone recognizes that it is false. We believe in the dream of the past and the future, just as we believe in our dreams at night, regardless of how ridiculous they may seem while we're dreaming them. This idea is simple, but it's not simplistic. In fact, it's revolutionary. If you think about your life and everything you've ever done, without exception, it's all taken place in the present. Although we've discussed these ideas before, they are so important that they are worth going over again. Every breath you have ever taken has been in the present. Do you think you can take a breath in the past? Go ahead and try it. Can you take a breath in the future? Every breath you have ever taken has been in the present. Every breath you are taking and every breath you will ever take will be taken in the present. Every step you have ever taken has been in the present. Any movement you have ever made has been in the present. All things exist only in the present. It will always be so. There is no past. No one has ever seen it, no one has ever dealt with the past, and no one has ever done anything in the past. No one has ever painted the past, photographed the past, or sat in the past. You can talk about it, and although the word is in the dictionary, that doesn't make it real. The sooner that you can stop believing in the myth of the past, the sooner you can become a free being. The book you are now holding exists in the present. You might say, but it existed yesterday, in the past. It's true that this book existed yesterday, but if you were holding it yesterday, it was in the present. And if you hold it tomorrow, it will be in the present too. When you no longer view life from the perspective of the 4-year-old you used to be, it will be much easier to experience the present and thereby discover what life is truly like. If you can understand that there is no past and no future, that life is always now, you can understand that the only thing you ever need to be concerned about is the present. The sooner you can let go of the myth of the past and the future, the sooner you become a free being, and the sooner you can blossom. Dancing in the cage. Unfortunately, many of us are afraid to blossom because we fear our own full potential. There is a good reason for this fear. When we were children, we were taught to live in a limited space, in something like a cage. If we had very liberal parents, we had a bigger cage. And if we had very conservative parents, we had a smaller cage. In any sense, we clearly knew where our limitations were. We learned to dance our dance of life inside this cage. We had no other choice. When some children encounter the bars of the cage, they slam against them, angrily complaining and screaming, "Let me out of here!" They know they are in a cage. When other children get close to the bars of the cage, they do a graceful pirouette backward toward the center of the cage. This gives them an artificial feeling of being free. Now that you are an adult, there is no reason to limit yourself anymore. However, the truth is that you keep yourself in that cage because you have grown to feel comfortable there. There are many stories of people who have been in prison for most of their lives, and then when they are turned loose at age 65 or 70, they feel very uncomfortable in the outside world. If they can't get back in jail legally, they will do something illegal so that they can return to prison where they feel safe. In terms of growth, many of us unknowingly keep ourselves within our old cages by allowing ourselves to blossom only in the areas where we were allowed to blossom as children. As adults, we continue to remain in those same areas. The tendency to stay in the cage can take on different forms. Sometimes the staying may even look like a leaving. For some people, the way to stay in their place is to constantly rebel against something. They continue rebelling as they get older, and they may even die rebelling. On the surface, it appears that they are struggling to be free, but in reality, their behavior serves to keep them confined. Another thing that keeps you in the cage is the idea that you know who you are. Have you ever said, "No, I can't do that because it wouldn't feel like me"? Or thought, "I wouldn't think that, it's not me"? In that way, you keep yourself confined. Who is this you? Where is the source of this belief that you know who you are? Is it coming from the sum of your past experiences, from memory, or is it coming from an openness in the moment? If you stay in your childhood cage, you are limiting yourself. It is that simple. If you really want to be free, and if you want to know who you are, you will have to come out of the cage. Now is always the teacher. Be open to total blossoming, to total flowering. Don't worry if you don't know exactly what it means. In fact, it may be better if you don't know, because if you do, you are going to be in your mind, and that will keep you from being open to the now. The best thing to do is just to be in the moment. When you are really present in this moment, you become aware that you are part of a divine creation. The now is not only the now, it's actually more than that. The now is a doorway, a gate to something greater. The more you abide in the now, the more it expands. Actually, however, the now is not expanding, rather you are expanding. And the more you expand, the more you are in harmony with truth. This will happen in stages. At first, you see a tree, you think, yes, that's a tree. Seen one and you've seen them all. But if you stay with the tree, it becomes a living thing with its own kind of consciousness. If you remain with it, after a while you experience this living being as simply energy that is flowing. Those who really experience this say that they can see the energy flowing in and through the tree. If you stay with it long enough, the whole thing becomes like light. You go from seeing a tree as solid material to understanding that it has consciousness, to seeing that it is really energy. As you stay in the now will teach you all you need to know. It's as if you were plugging into truth or into some master computer. When that happens, you really don't need to know anything anymore because you are everything. This may sound very abstract, but it is actually very practical. When you are plugged into truth, you will know things that you would never be able to grasp with your own individual computer. You may be able to read people's minds, but it is not that you are actually reading their minds. It's more like you know what they are thinking because you are them. When you are in the now, you leave behind the suffering that comes from the artificial, imaginary world in which you usually live. Remember, your suffering is your own creation. If you want to get rid of it, you only need to exit the movies playing in your head. Doing this takes a big jump, but it's not the type of jump where you have to move. In fact, you can stay still. You simply have to drop. Drop the movie. Drop the soap opera. Drop the dream in which you live, which is usually a nightmare. Once you are clear about it, just drop it all. When you work on your nightmare, you give it energy and strengthen it because you believe in it. You allow your subconscious to create imaginary monsters and then to believe they're real and that you have to deal with them. Why not just stop believing in them? If you will just be in this moment, you may never encounter a monster again. Let me ask you a question. In this moment, not in the past, not in the future, but in this very moment, do you have a problem? Probably not. And let me tell you a little secret. If you don't have a problem in the now, you don't have a problem because there is only now. Do you think you have a problem about next week? If you do, you're living in a fantasy world. Wait until next week. Stay in the now, each moment. When next week comes, ask yourself, do I have a problem right now? The answer will always be the same. No, you don't have a problem. The only time you have a problem is in the moment when your life is endangered. If your brakes go out and you are hurtling at 70 miles an hour toward a brick wall 12 feet ahead of you, you have a problem. If a tiger that escaped from the zoo is about to bite you on the throat, you have a problem. But otherwise, you do not. There is something very interesting about having problems. When you really have a problem, you don't feel like you do because you are in a different state of consciousness. It is as if existence comes down and says to you, "This one is too big for you, let me handle it." Then everything seems to go in slow motion. You are not afraid. It seems strange, but when you really do have a problem, you don't feel like you do because you're in a different state of consciousness. Live in the now and realize that there are no problems. See that you can trust the moment. You don't have to jump out of a plane without a parachute to test the theory. Just live your ordinary life and keep asking yourself, right now, at this very moment, do I have a problem? Ask yourself this question again and again and again. Your mind might say, "No, but I could have a problem tomorrow if blah, blah, blah." This is fantasy. This is supposition. Just look around, stay present in the moment, and keep asking yourself, right now, do I have a problem? If you are honest, you will almost always say, "No, I really don't have a problem right now." There are no dragons to slay. The more that you can stay in the now, the more an entirely new reality will be revealed to you. In this reality, you find someone who has your name, but is a totally different person. This person is not bound up by memory and old programs. She is a strong and capable adult who understands that she is an expression of the divine. You've been living in a dream world, seeing and fixing problems that don't really exist. It's like you've been sleeping and dreaming about a leaky roof, dreaming about going up there and fixing it, only to wake up the next morning to discover that your roof is just fine and has no leak. Even if you seem to be solving problems in your dream, nevertheless, because you are only dreaming, the problems are irrelevant and you haven't solved anything. Not only that, but the consciousness that created the problems in your dreams will continue doing so night after night, and you will struggle to solve them night after night. If you slay one dragon in your dreams, more and more will arrive to be slain. Soon you'll be very good at killing dragons, but you're still asleep. You are both creating the dragons as well as slaying them. You're caught up in a dragon world. You're trapped in a cycle of creating and solving artificial problems. This is a tremendous waste of energy. Instead of trying to solve the problems you have in this metaphysical dream, just wake up from it. Your problems are gone as soon as you wake up. Rose or dandelion? Some people are frightened by this idea, wondering what they will become when they wake up and start to blossom. Because every flower and every seed is different, you will not know what your blossom is until you unfurl. And you should not know, for having a preconceived idea about this keeps you from blossoming. A rose will be a rose, and a dandelion will be a dandelion. If you are meant to be a dandelion and keep trying to be a rose, you will be neither. You will be happiest when you are a dandelion, if that is what you are. It's important not to decide in advance what you should be and how you should look when you blossom. Just let it happen. Just trust every moment. Trust with intelligence, not blindness. Intelligent trust comes automatically when you are in the moment, for it is only then that you can see what is there, and this is what creates trust. In your whole process of unfolding and blossoming, you will never be asked to jump off a cliff into the unknown. All you will really be asked to do is to stay in the moment. If you are in the moment, there is no such thing as the unknown because you are present with what is. Therefore, it is not unknown. The subconscious and the now. This process is all about knowing the difference between reality and the projections of your 4-year-old. When your subconscious begins to understand the difference, it can then become a helping rather than a hindering force. Your subconscious, your mind, is not your enemy. Rather, it is a friend that is trying to protect you by following outdated programs from infancy and childhood. But unfortunately, that just doesn't work anymore because you are no longer an infant or a child. You need to bring your subconscious up to date. Simply said, you need to help it see reality so that it stops believing that the old movies, including the old dangers, are still happening now. This process is not difficult or complicated, but it does require effort and awareness. It requires that you really commit to waking up. It requires that you understand that there is nothing more important than waking up. This is the only way that you can become truly satisfied. This is the only way for you to discover who you really are. And in your heart, you do long to wake up. You long to know who you are. You long to come home. You long to be in harmony with truth. You have a deep longing for unity with the universal consciousness. In order for this realization to occur, you have to see that the dream in which you live is simply not real. And it's very important that you help your subconscious understand this. If your subconscious thinks that your dream is real, it is going to go on protecting you by automatically directing your life in the way it always has. If that happens, you'll feel conflicted. Intellectually, you will try to be in the now and in truth, but your subconscious will try to do something different. It will try to pull you back into the safety of your old and familiar world. The process isn't difficult or mysterious. It's not something on the horizon that you must continually move toward. You don't have to move anywhere. But for this transformation to happen, you have to be clear in each moment where you are coming from. Are you in memory or are you in the now? Be where you are. Be here totally. Stay in the moment. Stay in the now. Gradually, the scales will tip. Today you live in the dream, and sometimes you have glimpses of truth. After a while, the scales will tip and you will be living in truth most of the time. And although there will be lapses, when you slip back into memory, you will know that they are not real. Open yourself up to the possibility that you can wake up to truth, that you can realize who you truly are. Once you've opened yourself to this possibility, you have already begun. Questions and answers. Question: how can I know what is in my cage? Answer: ask yourself, if I could have anything I wanted, what would my life look like? After you answer this question, ask, is there any reason why I couldn't or shouldn't have this? The answer to your second question is your cage. Question: how can I stay in the now? Answer: by accepting what is. If the 4-year-old is afraid, the fear is happening in the now, even though the reason for the fear is coming from memory. If you think you shouldn't be afraid, you just left the now. If you accept the fear because that's what's happening right now, you stay in the now. If you identify with the fear, if you believe that there is a real reason to be afraid, even though your survival is not in danger, you just left the now. If you accept the fear as coming from the 4-year-old, knowing that it is coming from memory, you are in the now. Question. I feel like my 4-year-old doesn't want to be in the here and now. She enjoys the familiarity of the movie of the past. How can I convince her that to be in the moment is safe? Answer. Your 4-year-old is fascinated with the past because it is her habit to live there. There is an old phrase, "It ain't much, but it's home." As you continue to ask her what she is dreaming about, she will see that the past memories are pale compared to the here and now. Sometimes I have my students wear a rubber band around their wrists and from time to snap it to serve as a reminder to come back to the here and now. I used to carry a 30-minute parking timer in my pocket, and every 30 minutes it would buzz and remind me to wake up to this moment. Question. I feel so much tension and restlessness in my body that it is difficult to be here and now. Answer. I'd like you to imagine that you have a pot of boiling water on the stove. You use your hand to keep the lid on the pot because you are afraid of what's in the pot, memories of the past. You are using energy from the here and now to keep the lid on, which creates tension. As you take the lid off, steam is released, and as you look in the pot, you realize there is nothing to be afraid of, and you relax. If you want to understand why you do the things that you do today, you must look into your childhood. As you allow the dreams to come to the surface, comparing them with the here and now, tension melts away and the body relaxes. And the more relaxed you are, the more available you can be to the mystery. As you allow yourself to rest in the moment, you will experience being taken care of by existence. Chapter 11. Existence is doing all the work. Waking up from the dream involves a continuum of realizations. However, in order to understand the process in a clear manner, I divided the process into 3 phases. They are artificial designations in a way, but they assist in providing a true understanding of the blossoming of the flower of full awareness. So, as you begin to wake up from the dream created by the memories of your infancy, you will understand the strategies of survival by experiencing the process in the following 3 phases. 3 phases of waking up from the dream. Phase 1, the infant phase. The first phase of waking up from the dream is the infant phase, when at the subconscious level you still believe that you are a helpless infant and that you cannot meet your own survival needs. Most people live their whole lives in this phase, believing that their well-being depends on other people. They are full of strategies and attitudes, as well as never-ending fears, all designed to help them manipulate others to accept them and to take care of them. This won't be obvious on the surface, but as you delve more deeply into the concerns, strategies, fears, and desires of the mind, you will find that all things lead back to the helpless infant who is concerned about its survival. Over the years, your survival strategies became more and more sophisticated, so that by today they are hardly recognizable to you as the worries of the infant you used to be. However, as you start to see this more clearly, your concern about survival begins to diminish. On a deeper level, you finally understand that you can relax because you are now a capable adult able to take care of yourself. This realization brings you to the second phase. Phase 2. Caring for yourself. At this stage, you see that this huge computer called the subconscious has only one purpose, one thought, one passion, and that is your survival, which it believes to be in danger because the old memories of being helpless are still present. You also understand that you have to help the subconscious realize that these old fears are no longer relevant because you can now take care of yourself. With this realization, many of your strategies start falling away, many of your thoughts start falling away, and many of your fears and desires start falling away. This happens because they are all aimed at keeping a helpless infant alive, and they are simply no longer necessary. You recognize that you are taking care of yourself, and you are doing it better than your mother and your father did when you were an infant, because as the adult self, you are always available to yourself. You know your wants and your needs better than anyone else can know them. Phase 3. Existence is doing the work for you. In the first phase, you say to yourself, I can't do it. I am helpless and I can't meet my survival needs. In the second phase, you recognize that you can do it. This is the phase of the true adult when you really see that, hey, I am taking care of myself. Though meeting my basic survival needs was a big deal for the infant that I used to be, it is now a minor part of my life. After being in this phase for a while, no longer dominated by the fear of your infancy and allowing your eyes to open more to what really and truly is, you begin to see something else. That even though you think you are taking care of yourself as an adult, in reality, it is existence that is doing all the work. It finally becomes clear that it's not someone else taking care of you, nor is it even you, the adult, taking care of you. Rather, all the important things concerning your survival are being taken care of by existence itself. You can call existence something else if you like, but whatever name you give it, it is something outside you, something much bigger than you that has created the body you live in. That something bigger has given your body energy, intelligence, sensitivity, and mobility. That something has created each part of your body: legs, feet, arms, hands, eyes, ears, nose, everything. Something greater than you has designed the heart that beats continuously until your death. Something larger than you keeps your heart beating day and night and day and night. Whether your conscious mind is asleep or awake, or whether your conscious mind is spaced out or present, your heart keeps beating. Something greater than you is causing your heart to beat. And what is more important than having your heartbeat? Something greater than you created your lungs. You might say that you are doing the breathing, but most of the time you are totally unaware of your breath, yet it continues to happen. Certainly you are unaware of your breath while you are sleeping, and yet you continue to breathe. Something greater than you created this and maintains this allowing you to have oxygen at all times. Something greater than you has created your digestive system so that while you are asleep, your dinner can be digested. You certainly don't have any clue about how to turn a piece of bread into blood, skin, and energy. Something greater than you has designed this system. Something greater than you has devised your healing system. The body is constantly healing itself. It's a miracle. Something greater than you created and maintains this marvelous healing system. You didn't do it. Something greater than you is taking care of you. And it's not taking care of you in a vacuum, but in relationship to everything else. What good are your lungs if there is no air to breathe? What good is your digestive system if the planet doesn't produce the right food? We could go on and on. Something greater than you has created the air that you inhale. Something greater than you has created the wheat from which bread is made. Something greater than you has created the atmospheric pressure that you need to breathe and to be, has created gravity, has created the planet on which we live, has created the universe in which this planet exists. When you understand this, you understand that your survival is actually being taken care of by existence. And you begin to relax. You begin to trust. Be aware of what wonderful things are happening all the time. Your heart is beating. Food is being digested. Your kidneys are doing what they are supposed to do. Your liver is doing what it is supposed to do. Every cell is being rejuvenated. When you recognize that all this is being done for you, it's like gliding along on a boat, knowing that an engine is doing all the work and that somebody is steering the boat. All you have to do is stand at the rail and enjoy the wind blowing through your hair. You begin to open up and see what a gift every moment is. You start to realize that you are a part of this moment. You are not separate from existence. You are a part of existence. You are a flowering of existence. You are existence expressing itself. The concerns of the infant are no longer relevant. You are now a strong and capable adult, able to use the tools that existence has given you for staying alive. If you use those tools harmoniously and naturally, you'll find more and more that you are also in harmony with existence itself. In reality, there is no separation between you and existence. There is no separation between existence and a tree. There is no separation between existence and a mountain, no separation between existence and the sea. And there is certainly no separation between existence and you. So, as you start to see that there really is no need whatsoever to be concerned about your survival, as you start to see that existence is really taking care of you, as you start to see that existence is doing all the truly important work, then whatever you do can be simply a celebration. Life is a celebration, not a separation. Celebrate the fact that you have a body that you can use to move from one place to another, that you have a brain that allows you to think and to do certain things, that you have eyes that allow you to see, hands that allow you to pick things up. Even when you are carrying on the activity that we call work, you can see that this work itself is a celebration, a testimonial of the degree to which existence is actually taking care of us by giving us everything we need. When you realize this, life becomes much, much lighter. You are able to free up practically all your energy. You stop worrying. You stop manipulating. You begin to relax at a very deep level, and your old programs about survival begin to fall away. Once you see how you, yourself, are an expression of existence, all the fear-oriented programs simply seem meaningless. Because many people feel separate from existence and somehow inferior to it, they find this difficult to accept. As long as you believe that you are separate, then you feel inferior. But when we see that existence is moving through you, then you realize that you are existence. We are like leaves on a tree. A leaf on a tree could say, I am separate from the tree. I lead my own life. I am alive because of my own struggle, because of what I do to take care of myself. But when that leaf sees things clearly, it realizes that everything it is comes from the tree. The leaf's blueprint comes from the tree. Its energy comes from the tree. Its nourishment comes from the tree. This leaf is entirely an expression of the tree. If we were to touch that leaf, we could say that we are touching a leaf. But isn't it more correct to say that we are touching the tree because the leaf is the tree? In the same way, if we touch ourselves, we can say, I am touching me. But we could also say, I am touching existence. The second statement is actually truer than the first. You are existence. Everyone is longing for something. Everyone is longing for harmony. Everyone is longing for unity. Everyone is longing to come home. We are like leaves, feeling that we are cut off from the tree, but wanting to know that we belong to the tree, that we are the tree expressing itself. This deep longing will only be satisfied when you stop believing that you are separate and realize that you are an expression of existence. Because of that, existence is taking care of you. In its taking care of you, it is giving you freedom to move. It has provided another larger womb for you here in this life, but this womb is more colorful, more spacious, and more fun than your first one because it allows your uniqueness to open into that flower that you are meant to be. Allow yourself to become that flower. When you see the tremendous intelligence, energy, harmony, and consciousness of which you are a part, then you can only be grateful and joyful to be a part of existence. So be prepared. As you awaken from this dream created by the memories of your childhood and infancy, you move through these three phases. First, you believe at a very deep level, the subconscious level, that I can't do it myself. I have to influence other people so that they like me, so that they will take care of me. Once you move out of this phase into the phase of the adult, you recognize that you are in an entirely different body than the body you were born into, that this adult body is taking care of itself, that you are taking care of yourself. The final phase is when you recognize that you are not doing anything vital at all anyway. Everything that is truly important is being done for you. Then your actions begin to be a dance of celebration, a dance expressing your gratefulness to existence for giving you this body, this energy, this consciousness, this intelligence, this mobility, this creativity, for allowing you to be the blossom that you are. You are not alone. You are not separate. You are in existence. You are with existence. You are existence. Questions and answers. Question. When I'm stuck in the 4-year-old's survival fear, how can I learn that I am existence? Answer. First, accept the fear. Then use your 5 senses to determine whether your survival is actually in danger. If it's not, then ask, how old do I feel when I feel like this? You're gradually separating yourself as the true adult from the 4-year-old. Once you have a sense of your adult strength and resourcefulness, get a sense of your heart. Who is beating your heart? Look at a tree if one is available. What gives life to a tree? The first step is finding and coming back to you as the adult, then expanding your awareness beyond that. Question. How can I strengthen this? Answer. Practice as much as possible, using your 5 senses and asking yourself, what am I aware of right now? And what are my senses telling me right now? Are good ways to expand your awareness to something greater than who you thought you were. Question. How can I trust existence when my son is having so many challenges? Answer. Your worry and concern are not helping your son. You may ask yourself what his challenges are reminding you of from your past and separate the nightmare of your past from your present situation. As you allow existence to guide you, the miracles of the moment will shower upon you. Is the island separate from the sea? Is the bird separate from the sky? Look for examples in nature of how everything is interconnected. Question. I don't feel like existence is taking very good care of me. Answer. Ask your 4-year-old what she needs that she is not getting right now. Ask her how old she feels. As an adult, tell her you are capable of taking care of her. Show her how existence is taking care of you both. Ask yourself the question, is there a problem right here, right now? Look around and see what existence is giving you in this moment. Allow yourself to be open to feeling supported by your breath.